Hello. We're all very aware of the current ecological and economic crisis that's facing us in the world today, and of course, the desperate need to deal seriously with the threat of the climate change, the threat of climate change and all its consequences. So I believe in order to be able to deal with this, we actually need to recover a worldview, recover a sense of intimate connection and deep respect for nature, which was actually one that the ancient indigenous peoples of the world knew intuitively and experienced as the reality, going back to millennia. And so I want to look at a passage well known, the very first chapter of the book of Genesis in the scriptures, which is a story, a mythic story about creation. But it has been sadly, the meaning of it, the real understanding of it, what lies behind it has been often lost in translation. And so I'm going to start by reading the English, an English translation of this before we go on to talk about it. So this is in the Revised English Bible text. And I'm going to read just simply the first two verses. We're going to skip over a lot and then go to verse 26 towards the end of this whole story as it is told here. So it says here in the first verse, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was a vast waste, darkness covered the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered over the surface of the water." And then shifting over to verse 26, "Then God said," this is the sixth day, "then God said, let us make human beings in our image, after our likeness, to have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and the cattle, all wild animals on land, and everything that creeps on the earth." God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish in the sea, the birds of the air, and every living thing that moves on the earth." God also said, "Throughout the earth I give you all plants that bear seed, and every tree that bears fruit with seed. They shall be yours for food. All green plants I give you for food to the wild animals, to all the birds of the air, and everything that creeps on the earth, every living creature." So it was. And God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. Evening came and morning came, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth and everything in them were completed. On the sixth day, God brought to an end all the work that he had been doing. And on the seventh day, having finished all his work, God blessed the day and made it holy, because it was the day he finished all his work of creation. Now, obviously, we've listened to an ancient and well-known story about the beginnings of the universe in an English translation of the Hebrew. Well, it's an ancient Hebrew text. And of course, it's the first of a number of stories about our origins found in the scriptures. However, as I said, its inner meaning has sadly been lost in translation. Unlike many other ancient stories told around campfires of a nomadic tribe, they were not meant to be taken literally. They were myths. That is, stories that help us to explore the meaning and purpose of life. And the interpretation that I'm offering here is based on a layer of meaning that can only be discovered through understanding the inner sense that the root sounds of these ancient words evoke in the Hebrew language. Now, I'm indebted to Neil Douglas Klotz, a Sufi mystic and expert in ancient Middle Eastern languages, under whose guidance I studied for some 4 years. And in fact, what I'm sharing of this, although it is an adaptation of his original text, because I wanted to simplify it in some places, make it slightly more easy to access, I'm very much fuller of this version can be found in his book, together with all the textual notes, and it's a book called Desert Wisdom. Now, so let's begin the story, a retelling of the story, which is going to be if you like, the kind of retelling that we tell today, in today's world, because we're able, therefore, to use language and terminology which has evolved and developed, particularly through science. So in the beginning, which means in archetypical form, with the power to be something in principle, like a point that unfolds itself in all directions, conceiving the idea of a universe, for better and for worse. So in that time, before time and space, the being of beings, the inherent intelligence of the divine isness, the ultimate pronoun, if you like, which includes both the one and the many, drew upon unknowable otherness to convert into knowable existing two tendencies of our universe to be. The first is the cosmic tendency towards the limitless, the spiritual inner dimension of reality that is not limited to physical form and can be felt as a vibration, an atmosphere, a sound, even a sound that is a name that describes an essence. The ancient Hebrews call that heaven. The second is the cosmic tendency towards the limited, a formed and fixed energy that moves straight towards goals and solutions, the sense of purpose that we see in earth, water, fire, and air. In other words, all that we experience as matter, and that the ancient Hebrews simply called earth. In principle, therefore, in beginningness, oneness created what our modern scientists call the wave and the particle. But in the modern world, we've inherited an idea that there is separation between the realm of spirit and the realm of matter, between heaven and earth, rather than seeing them as two dimensions of one seamless whole. Thus, we've treated the natural world as mere matter to be consumed, and not a living entity and an expression of the one that is many, the ultimate pronoun. Now, going on, particles, the power of limits, didn't really exist yet in our reality and were still only things in principle. They were like the germ of a solution within the shell of a surrounding problem, the inkling of an answer to a question, what next? A kernel of purpose embedded in a dream of the universe's heart. This earthiness of all the elements was still unformed and waiting. Meanwhile, on the surface of the primordial, yet unawakened womb, that billowing edge of the abyss of existence, where phenomena, time and space had yet to appear, a struggle raged. A spark of cosmic desire wanted to return to the source immediately, leaving behind the realm of constriction and contraction. This self-involved fire forgot its purpose. It set off the first violence of a being that wants to be somewhere it is not. Its barren wanting strangled its own voice until the breath of universe being touched the face of beloved possibility. Pure expansive power stirred the primordial soup. The being of beings inspired, animated, and reminded flow, that same edge of possible phenomena, of the expansive growth awaiting it. One could say that cosmic breath moved with pregnant possibility into the deep and massive nether of chaotic dark, awakening womb. For what? An intimacy, yet unknown. So, in these first two verses of the Bible, we have an introduction to a fundamental cosmic law that governs how anything new comes into being. It is called the law of three. For anything new to happen, you need three forces: a positive, desiring force, a negative, perhaps resisting force, and a third, reconciling force. And we can find these three forces in the heart of the universe being, the very beginning of the process that gave birth to the cosmos. There was the desire to be in communication, in relationship with another, and through that relationship to know itself. And then there was resistance because, you know what? It'll involve suffering. But the third force is divine love, the fire of love that reconciles the first two forces. And this is the beginning of the whole evolutionary process in the very nature of God that gives rise eventually to the Trinity as we experience God today. But it also gave rise to our universe and eventually to us. We, in turn, are, if you like, three-brained beings in which these three forces are active. But in our day-to-day world, we see this law in operation in nature all the time, whether it's the seed in the earth, the soil, the dark soil, and then it's the rain and warmth of the sun that supplies the third force that causes growth. Or you can see it in a sailing boat, the wind blowing up against the sail, the resistant keel and sail, and then the skill of the helmsman that can make use of these two forces to bring the boat to its destination. And there are numerous other examples. So we need to understand this law today because there are 2 points of view, 2 ways in which to view reality at the moment. The view that says matter is matter and that's all there is, and we are all separate beings. And there is the view that says there's more to reality that we can see with our eyes and measure with our instruments, that there is a spiritual transcendent dimension to all that exists, and that everything is connected and related to the one interconnecting whole. And what we need today is for these 2 opposing views to be reconciled in order for us to be able to address the crisis that we face in the world today. But how? Who's going to do this? It is only the power of love through awakened human beings. Now, I talk a lot about that in the 4th Way Enneagram course, which I have online and is available for you to watch and partake in through the Edinburgh International Centre for Spiritual Peace. So Spirituality and Peace, EICSP, their website, and you can find it on their events page. Well, anyway, after that, a lot of other things happened, each in its own proper order, in each illuminating period. Well, the day, you understand, for there could be no shortcuts in the process, just as there can be no shortcuts in the evolution and transformation of our own consciousness to become the person we were created to be. Not only the individual that you and I were created to be, but also the person that humanity was created to be. And sometimes we reach a kind of barrier to progress when some input of fresh energy is needed in order for us to make any progress. And we are at that point now, just as much as there needed to be a Copernican revolution in the 16th century to change the whole way we understood, so from an Earth-centric to a heliocentric universe. Today we need a paradigm shift as well. And we are the ones that God has called to bring that about by waking up to this reality ourselves. The whole humanity needs to wake up. And thus we pass over the details. I'm going to have to pass over the details of days 1 to 3, which describe in the story of creation I'm coming back to. They describe the coming into being of spaces involving the separation of light and dark, heavens above, earth beneath, water and dry land, 6 spaces, so to speak, each needing to be filled. We also pass over the details of days 4 and 5, which describe the filling of the empty spaces created in the first 2 days. We come then to day 6, which describes the filling of the space that appeared as dry land. And so let the story continue. Let the storyteller continue telling his story. Proceeding further towards the call of purpose, towards the horizon of destiny that seemed to recede with each step, the Holy One drew from particle reality, earth, the basic character of brand new living beings that could exist and thrive on earth, on land. And now there were options for more than swimming, wriggling, creeping, paddling, floating, or winging. There were legs and limbs were involved, so consciousness could also walk step by step. Two more things happened as a result. First, living beings could move faster and make more noise without reconnecting to the shared wave reality that connects us all in one interrelated network. Second, they could now also gather and pile up more material stuff, again, without touching base with the community of wave, the spiritual community. Serious consequences unfolded from this development of consciousness. Each new way to move and gather as an individual meant beings could seek to fulfill their own ends in new ways that often at the expense of others. So just to be clear, all beings we're talking about came from the assimilated whole substance of the One, the Holy One, as he or she had expressed him herself through the whole known universe. That is, it was all divine blood, essence, and sap. In Hebrew, that is Adamah. No one came from the outside. There was no outside to the universe ground of being. Once again, the universe being saw it as ripe, a kind of timely way for the purpose of existence to unfold. And then it happened. The universe being declared her radiant, burning passion, her love and desire to know him herself more deeply in yet another way. He spoke, and by speaking also asked the question, could all the incredible number of previous experiments in being and consciousness be experienced by and within a single individual, a particle and wave being, a being in whom the ultimate pronoun could be conscious of herself? Let the whole experiment of evolving consciousness, he said, to be grounded in earthlings, Adam, who take on the veil of the Holy One, him herself, the shadow of the totality as projected from the source, as it has lived, moved, and breathed through the whole experiment of earthiness so far. Let this Adam, this universal collective humanity, have the complete powers of differentiation, subjectivity, and communion that we have developed so far. Let them have the power to persevere, for better or worse, in their own destiny, ruling with, along with, and within the other beings created before it, the other embodiments of instinctive soul. No, not dominion over, but power with, ruling with and within. So by uniting from within with prior creation, by identifying with the universe as a whole, let this Adam, in its own nature, she said, hold the key to the challenge of being individual. It can conceive, imagine, and think as the universe does. So we humans are the microcosm of the macrocosm. As above, so below. It's a principle of knowing that the ancient mystics taught. So, individuated collective unity, sometimes called humanity, could still distill the juice of the wine of the cosmos, and it could still go off on their own tangent if they forgot their own origin and source. Even within a human unity, diversity also expressed itself. Two basic tones or modes of experiencing human consciousness presented themselves in various ways in different bodies. One was innocent, obvious, and apparent, growing and rising, developing what had been established and embodying the memory of the origin of things. The other was innocent, also subtle and deep, nurturing the new and embodying the inner intuitive knowing, aware of the limitlessness of this space and the womb of the primeval void. Aware of that limitless otherness, the spiritual dimension, much more intuitively, imaginatively. So these two ways of knowing and experiencing evoked the first stirrings of male and female consciousness, as found in various ways within each human being. One music, two modes, destined to deal with the harmonics in ever-evolving changes. So the Holy One, the universe being, blessed this living experiment with a wordless job description, which in translation might sound like this: bear more fruit, become more frequent and diverse, fill the particles of inner and outer life as you spread over and through the earth and earthiness. Help creation to redeem its purpose and rule together within, alongside the older inner outer ways of swimming, flying and creeping, whether through the wave or particle. So this human, able to reflect on all that's gone before, self-reflective, reflective and reflexive, can overrule what's gone before, but needs to rule together. Yes, listeners. The human project could override and overrule its older interior structures, the subconscious instinctual self, the reptilian intelligence, and all other previous precious developments that it received as a heritage. And yet the blessing clearly given tells us that we need to learn how to redeem and fulfill our own and nature's purpose, how to manage creation alongside and within other beings present in the sacred story being told by the Holy One right now from the first beginning. So as a completion to the sixth illuminating period, the Holy One next instituted eating and being eaten. Food, lachem, could be both outer food to sustain our bodies and inner understanding. Give us today, this day, our food, Jesus said, taught his disciples to pray. Both the outer food and the inner understanding. So now a human being could assimilate another's interior wisdom. It could, as it were, receive bundles of energy and understanding, the living freshness of another, so that the desire for deeper communion with the whole universe and the Holy One would also evolve. That is how we're going to move beyond the sticking point now. Yet the universe being saw that to follow a new course, learning as it grew, the creation could not be completely ripe all the time. In all places, a fire had been lit, smoke was rising, choices made in freedom must run their course. So this development in creation was as close to unity as relative unity could get, ripe for the moment, good enough. Once over and back again, the sixth round of opening and closing marked the sixth large manifestation of luminous, intelligent happenings in our vicinity since the great beginning. The melody of humanity joined the music of life. And as the caravan of creation continued, the encouragement of the future that magnetic shall become, urging it all forward from behind, had completely activated all the basic wave and particle tendencies that the Holy One had radiated from the primordial beginning. All the principal processes of the trial and error experiment in consciousness had been seeded and were growing. You could say that the character and habits of the universe were establishing themselves. So the Holy One permitted him herself the most mysterious creative movement of all. She began restoring to him herself the remembrance and awareness of all that was going on from the start of the caravan of creation until now. Of course, the unexpected could always happen. But one of the prime traits that the universe being was expressing through him herself was the expectancy and desire to fulfill and complete him herself in form and consciousness through the creative dreams of every being. With this connection of sacred memory, rippling through the wave of movement, she seeded the possibility for humans to remember in awe and mystery what had been before the beginning. And riding that wave came deep empathy with everything that drops its form, releases its visible journey, returns to join the ancestors with all that dies. This act of restoration, of returning to the source, the universe set aside as pivotal, as holy. To clear space in one's awareness, to remember the primal before with empathy and compassion, became just as essential to creation's development as all other previous movements of the symphony. The inner turning and returning, the opportunity for pausing and taking stock of one's connection to Source, became the archetype of what is sacred, Sabbath, a holy moment, a holy day. So the whole story told so far may only be a sign or a symbol, perhaps a family history, of the way in which the evolving desire of the Holy One to experience consciousness in wild and unexpected ways is working through everything we're aware of, whether in wave and particle, as it moved towards its purpose in life, as the seventh day continues. And this whole story is also found in the symbol of the Enneagram, which I explain in the Fourth Way Enneagram course. And so I again refer you to that course on the EICSP website, the details of which are in the notes, which I will give with this talk. Thank you.